Hi again, Victor Tiffany here, the Roger Stone of the Progressive Revolutionary Movement. You see, because I'm advising some of you whose policy positions might not fit through the Overton window to stretch the truth, to tell some fibs, to tell a whopper if you need to, in order to keep yourself in the Overton window for your congressional district. In the Overton window above, I described how to find out if your policy position falls within the Overton window. If you can't afford polling, go to your well-funded opponent's website and see where they stand on some of these issues. You might be a CFAR candidate, and in the Contract for American Renewal is already designed to go right through the Overton window. Right? You don't have to lie at all about Medicare for All because voters support that. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I'm going to give 3 examples of what I'm talking about in terms of not necessarily being honest or not making any unforced errors and then therefore getting through the Overton window. Again, if everything you opine and discuss and your policy positions are all within the Overton window for your congressional district or state, you don't need to lie at all. If you can tell a white lie, don't tell a whopper. Let me give you the 3 examples. One is hypothetical. One is a true to life. Happened last week. I sat there with my own eyes and watched it. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. And the 3rd example has to do with modern monetary theory, which is why that's the next video down. If you don't understand that, you might want to pause this video at a moment and listen to the modern monetary theory video below and then come back and finish this one. Because it's important, I believe. Well, let me just get there. First one first. Hypothetical. I believe ever since the invention and use of nuclear weapons to end World War II, that the Second Amendment has been obsolete. Obsolete. It's designed, it was put in place for national defense. We just don't need it for national defense anymore. I don't believe gun ownership should be a constitutional right. I think it should be a privilege earned by taking safety classes and having some psychological profile examinations done before you get a permit to own a handgun or a rifle. Right? That's my policy position. I can say that out loud. I'm not running for Congress. I'm not running for any office. I don't have to go through the Overton window. Somebody might attack me personally for my opinion, but I'm not going to lose an election because I'm not running. If you happen to share my point of view, however, you believe the Second Amendment is obsolete and that there should be an amendment to overturn the Second Amendment, you can't say that. I'm not even sure Stephen Jaffe, who's running against Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco, can make that argument. He might want to do some research. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But it's probably not supported by most Americans in any congressional district. So you don't want to say that if that happens to be your true, privately held policy position. You can say something like, I support universal background checks on gun purchases. That fits right through the Overton window. Something like 90% of the people support that. But if you're asked directly, do you support the Second Amendment? You whip out your Whopper card, you set it on the table, and you say, I sure do. That's right. You lie. You lie to get inside the Overton window. Because it's more important that you get elected and give us Medicare for All or any other universal health care coverage than it is for you to tell the truth about your private policy position and screw up your election chances. Now, something I forgot to mention at the very beginning of this. If you are taking my advice, if you are willing to deceive the public in order to get elected, don't tell anyone you've even watched this video, much less that you're taking Victor Tiffany's advice. Bad move. Virtually every progressive I've dealt with since I've gotten really public over this debate thinks I'm a liar, and I'm not lying. I'm simply advising you to lie in certain conditions as minimally as necessary in order to fit through the Overton window. And if that's wrong, then it is wrong. All right, let's be clear about that. I don't think it's right to lie, but I think it's far, far worse for you to allow the truth to get in the way of election success and not get Medicare for All passed. That's the higher ethical standard here, not telling the truth, whatever the truth is that you have in your head. So let me be careful about this. If you're on record somewhere, a blog post, a tweet, anything, stating that you think the Second Amendment is obsolete and it should be overturned, you can't just tell that whopper or you'll get caught. And you don't want to get caught lying. So the way you do it is you say, I used to believe that the Second Amendment was obsolete, but I've come around after discussions with hunters and other citizens. I now believe and I now support the Second Amendment. You see, be very careful when you lie. And don't tell anyone you're willing to lie to get elected. Don't tell your wife. Don't tell your associates. Don't tell your best friend. Keep it completely under your hat. Don't even tell me. Just lie and get elected. That's the first example. Second example was a CFAR candidate. He signed the contract for American Renewal. He's really enthusiastic. But he was attacking another CFAR candidate. And I went and asked him during lunch. I was eating and I'm back and forth messaging on Facebook. Why are you attacking him? Well, he's lying. So what? What's your concern about that? Well, he shouldn't lie to get elected. He should tell the truth. Dude, that's not your concern. If he has to lie to get elected, leave him alone. That's his prerogative. Oh, no, you should always tell the truth. The guy was a complete fundamentalist about telling the truth. Well, later that day, I decided to look at his Twitter feed to see if I could find something that I thought might be not completely honest, so I could point it out to him. I didn't find anything like that, but what I did find was a tweet replying to Donald Trump saying that the United States was an evil empire. Even before Trump was elected, the United States was an evil empire. This is a Bernie crap. He's running in the Democratic primaries, and he's calling, by implication, President Obama an evil emperor, which I'm actually pretty much in agreement with. I wouldn't use the word evil, but I think Obama was a major state terrorist with the use of the U.S. military. But I wouldn't say that if I was running for Congress, especially if I was running as a Democrat, because Obama's still very popular. So if I were his neoliberal opponent, I'd take a screenshot of that tweet, and I'd leave it on the screen for a 30-second spot with a voiceover that says, my opponent believes the U.S. is an evil empire. He believes you are evil. He believes President Barack Obama was an evil emperor. He believes our good men and women in the military fighting for freedom across the globe are evil people. And he believes this is an evil nation. Are you going to send a candidate like that to Washington to represent you? My name's Joe Blow, and I approve this message. You see what I'm getting at here? Don't be out there voicing opinions that are outside the Overton window, because all you're going to do is feed ammunition to your opponents to defeat you. And the Overton window, by the way, is different in the Democratic primaries than it is in the general election. It shifts to the center in the general election, just like the Overton window of the Republican primary shifts to the center. It's to the right, it shifts to the center in the general election. So the Overton window is different for being in the primaries than it is in the general election. You got to be sensitive to that too if you're running in the Democratic Party. Third example. We were interviewing candidates who signed the contract for American Renewal. And one of my questions, actually I posed it as an accusation, was to these candidates was, you're just a tax-spend liberal, aren't you? And I got two answers. Almost always I got answers that were basically coming from outdated, gold standard kind of thinking, right? This is where modern monetary theory comes in. So after the live stream was over, we stopped the feed, and I went back to these two candidates, both of them were women, and asked them about the answer to that question. And the one said, I thought you might be looking for the modern monetary theory answer, which would have been her true position, but she said, I don't want voters to think I'm crazy. The modern monetary theory, which I explain in the next video below, isn't understood by enough voters to fall within the limits of the Overton window anywhere in this country. I don't believe. There are candidates in Massachusetts talking about it, and Congressman Ro Khanna is tweeting about it. So maybe in some districts you can actually talk about modern monetary theory, the upshot of modern monetary theory. You don't have to raise taxes to pay for spending. You can just pay for spending and leave taxes zero. That is to say, don't increase taxes at all. All right, and the other candidate, who also gave me the gold standard outdated answer, also basically said, I don't think the voters in my district understand that. So she didn't give me her true answer. She gave me a kind of false answer in order to stay within the Overton window. And you want to know who else did this? Bernie Sanders' economic advisor is a woman named Stephanie Kelton. She is the Galileo of modern monetary theory, right? Instead of a telescope, she did research. She was out to prove or disprove modern monetary theory. So she looked at the whole entire federal budget process to find out if taxes paid for spending or not, because that's the argument. Her name of her paper was, Do Treasury Bonds and Federal Taxes Pay for Federal Spending? Something like that. And what she found, looking through her telescope, using her analysis, and looking at every stage and step of the budgetary process, she found out that the theorist, the original modern monetary theorist, Warren Moser, was right. Taxes do not fund spending. There's much more about modern monetary theory in the video below. But that economist, that modern monetary economist, was advising Bernie Sanders. And yet here he is out there paying for his programs with tax increases. Why? Because if he ran on modern monetary theory, he would have been blasted. It would have been outside the Overton window. So he actually ran on tax increases, arguing that overall medical expenses would go down because you wouldn't have to pay co-pays or any of the other expenses we're paying for medicines and doctor's visits and x-rays and all the rest. That was the argument he made, and it was fairly popular. But the arguing is, and what I'm saying is, he wasn't completely honest. He didn't give the public the modern monetary theory answer or policy prescription, and he knew what it was. Stephanie Kelton, the Galileo of modern monetary theory, was his economic advisor. But he gave gold standard answers. Why? Because he wanted to stay within the Overton window. And that's what I'm advising you to do. If you need to fib, stretch the truth, tell a white lie, tell a whopper or two, do it. Get elected and get us universal health care coverage. Thank you.